Cool. Okay, so hello. Oh, Arjun tagged me. Hang on.
Yeah, he's just asking you to record.
Okay. Okay. So hello everyone. Again, 99% of you already know me, but thanks, Patrick. I'm Sarah. I'll be facilitating this discussion today. So if we can just go around, say our names and our pronouns if you're comfortable, and kind of how you're feeling about the discussion today, and also your school, because I know we're not all from UCSD. So, like I said, I'm Sarah. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I go to Cal State Monterey, which is now Cal State Zoom, and I am excited to hear what you all have to say. And I'll popcorn it to my guy Patrick.
Okay, I'm Patrick from New Zealand, and I am an incoming freshman from ULA. I am going to be co-facilitating this discussion, and to be honest, I don't really know a lot about the topic, especially the parts relating to government, but I'm interested to hear what everyone has to say. I'll popcorn it to Josh Wang.
Hello, I'm Josh. I'm from New Zealand. I'm currently at Auckland Uni of Auckland. And yeah, I have a little bit of personal experience with this topic, but I don't know that much either. So yeah, I'm excited to participate. And yes, I'll popcorn it to Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. She, her, hers. I'm from UC San Diego, or I go to UC San Diego, and I'm from San Jose, California. I'm doing okay today, and I'm just excited to learn more. I don't really know too much about the topic, similar to Patrick. Yeah, I was born on campus. Chancellor Costa gave birth to me. So I don't know too much about the topic. I'm not really a religious person, so it doesn't really affect me, like I don't think about, it's definitely an important part of, the government and talking about people's individual lives and stuff like that. So I'll be interested to learn from all of y'all. And I'll call on Matthew.
Hello, my name is Matthew. I just used my name. I'm from Sacramento, California, so kind of where the first smoke kind of to rest. Yeah, I go to Sacramento State University, but just Zoom at this point. And I grew up religious, so I think I may have some things to say, but that's about all my personal credentials. And then Joshua.
Hello all. Of course, my name is Joshua, as Matthew said. I go to UCSD, and I'm very interested in this discussion. I think that this is a crucial issue, regardless of however anyone identifies themselves on the religious spectrum. So I'm very excited to get everyone's perspectives and have some really good discussion on this.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. This is the cool breakout room. Okay. Anyway, so we'll get into the discussion. Also, I want to say if anyone doesn't want to talk at any point, you just rather talk in the chat, that's fine. Either me or Patrick can read off what you say, so don't worry about that. So before we get into the questions, I just wanted to share a brief definition of what secularism is. So paraphrase from Wikipedia, I know, don't come for me, but the political definition of secularism is the idea of having the separation of church and state within a country. So I kind of wanted to think about that and see what you all think about that definition.
Just clarification, like when you say a separation from church, oh god, there's an aeroplane in the background. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
It's okay though.
You muted yourself. Were you gonna say something?
I know. I'm just waiting for the airplane to pass because it's quite loud. But yeah. So is it like talking about separating like any kind of religion from like a government or kind of like a central governing kind of body, or like?
I think that's actually a good place to start out this discussion, actually. So, anyone want to chime in on that?
So the question being, what is the nature of the separation?
Right. Yes.
Like, is it complete like there you cannot have religion as like a kind of belief, almost, or like some? So like, can you have religious people in this like government body like that? That's kind of the like line to like how you separate it. Are you going to allow somebody who's religious to be governing, or is it simply just you cannot implement kind of religious like rules or something like that in the government?
The latter is more accurate. Is closer to it. This is a very interesting question, and it's something I've thought a lot about. I really like this question. How it's worded in the First Amendment is that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. So basically, it is in the legal area. Religious people can get elected, and they can serve in Congress, but their religion shouldn't bleed through into their legislation. So, for instance, you can't have a law that favors one religion over another. That would be a law respecting the establishment of a religion. How it's played out in more modern times is that you also cannot support religion in a public institution. So, for instance, when teaching religion in schools, there's ideologies that are considered irreligious. Those are considered acceptable for favoring in public schools, whereas religious ideologies, some are still favored over others, but those are more of a second rank type thing to irreligious ideology. Does that answer your question? That's my assessment. How I'm seeing it play out.
That makes sense. I was just because it's that kind of. I was just questioning whether it's like, I know like it's legislation wise you can't let religion kind of affect that, but I was just wondering, is that kind of public, like there are religious, but then there are religious, if you allow religious people into the like governing body, then are they allowed to like kind of promote things in public? And that's kind of cleared it up. So that's cool.
One thing I find kind of interesting in the United States, I can't speak to any other country, but one thing that does happen here is that people may choose to vote for representative due to their their religious beliefs that they may make public. But like the kind of assumption or like the expectation is that once they're in like the chamber, the assembly, or of the Senate, whatever level you are, that it won't. It may carry over into the things that you may vote for, but those things cannot be explicitly, supporting one religion over another, especially in like public institutions and stuff like that. But in terms of like the rhetoric they may employ to be elected, or like kind of score points with their electorate, I'm pretty sure it's like for a lot of, especially like conservative evangelical supporters, it's pretty common to sort of like pay lip service to it. But the expectation is that you remain pretty secular in your principles whenever you get into office.
Yeah, I feel like in that case you would never get any true separation of church and state, because it may not be that the elected officials openly advocate for a certain religion, but people, as Matthew said, people do elect people for their religion a lot of the times, and I think that has that kind of the line on whether religion affects government. Does it not?
Yeah, I think that brings up another very important issue, because how can the elected officials, how can they get away from their religion? Because really your religious beliefs, if you do adhere to them, actually, then they'll permeate your worldview. So they really can't get away from that. Now, I'd like to clarify on this issue, I'd like to clarify something I mentioned earlier. Well, I stated earlier as one of the components of secularism is that the religion of the lawmaker shouldn't bleed through into their laws. I should clarify that that is what is uniquely their religion. So, for instance, out of my religion, I may believe that murder is wrong because God actually likes people. So, in that case, that's part of my religion, but it's not uniquely my religion. But something about I don't know, wearing black hats on Tuesdays. People have to wear black hats on Tuesdays, something like that. That would be uniquely their religion. You can't force it on people. Yeah, not actually like. But actually, does anyone there's a larger idea that has been kind of developing in my head. If anyone would like to jump in, I think it's relevant to this question. But if anyone would like to jump in, I don't want to just hold the mic for a really long time. No,
Go
okay.
for it, Josh.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Speech, thank you. So I see that secularism was established to protect, ideological minorities from ideological majorities. So, for instance, the colonists, they didn't like how the king was running things. The king has his own idea on how things ought to be done, and the colonists didn't like that. And so, when they established independence and they got the system, they're like, hey, let's prevent, let's prevent an ideology from abusing power, a particular ideology from monopolizing government authority. So they had this idea of separation of church and state. Now, the thing is that this is one of the few areas that I think the Constitution is incomplete. I guess an area that the founding fathers did not cover, and that is because not all ideologies are religious. And so, actually, what's recently happened is that you have ideologies that are irreligious. That those people found there's kind of a loophole with that. Those ideologies get a pass, while religious ones don't. So, for instance, an atheist or agnostic, or maybe, Buddhism, that can be pretty non-religious actually. That those would get a pass. You can make laws based on that. I guess more hedonistic maybe. Whereas religion, and those can be perfectly acceptable in the public place, but religious ones cannot. And so the problem was that at the time that secularism was conceived, all moral frameworks were tied to a religion, pretty much all, as far as I can tell. You didn't have a moral framework apart from a religion, but now you do. Now people make ideas independent of an idea of a religion. And so, yeah, the secularism is now, it's not doing what it was intended to do, because it is creating an imbalance of power, because irreligious ideologies are favored over others in the government. So yeah, I think that you really, and the problem is you really can't get away from ideologies. People will always be legislating out of their ideology. They'll just permeate their worldview, and they'll be like, oh, well, this is the right way to do things. So really, it's you can't keep them out of government. So then what do you do from there? That's the point that I'm at. How do we successfully balance ideologies? Now, the same founding fathers that introduced the idea of secularism also said this government that we're making, it only works for a self-governing people. And so they had this idea that people do have a good moral framework that they're applying to themselves. So you wouldn't have to legislate morality, really. But we've kind of gotten away from that. Things are getting more muddled.
Was that is like an imbalance in ideology actually the original reason for why secularism is a concept now? Because from my understanding, it's more that people tend to think that sometimes religion can be incompatible with the sort of pragmatic social analysis that you need to make changes in a governmental level. I'm just interested, like, what was if anyone knows the actual reason for why secularism is came out.
If I can offer my best guess, I do agree. I think part of it. First, I do want to say that I think Josh brought up a good point when he said that, like, most of the moral frameworks we have, whether or not they're specifically associated with any particular religion, do generally like derive from like some sort of religious belief. Like a lot of the sort of overarching ethical frameworks we have do come from Christianity as we live in the U.S. Like like murder is bad. Like a lot of it comes from like the New Testament. But like to go back to your question, like the original like impetus from like at least secularism in Western countries, to my knowledge, I think it comes mainly from like the Enlightenment, and where it's like they were kind of like separating from these sort of like overarching like deontological ideas about the universe, and they were kind of questioning like, well, does this really hold up under like scrutiny apart from religion? And I think that like the good things that came out of the Enlightenment were also applied toward government, and I think that's how we got sort of our modern U.S. government, where it's like, well, we probably shouldn't let like the country side with any particular religion over another, just because of like, of course, the bad experiences in the British Empire and stuff like that. So that's my best guess, but I generally think that that's a good thing. Like I wouldn't necessarily want to live in a theocracy. But
I think it was more introduced because of freedom of religion. They were a lot of the people that originally came over to the colonies were fleeing the more tyrannical churches that were over in Europe. So when they established a new government, they didn't want a single religious institution rising to power and preventing everyone else from practicing how they wanted, because that's the United States was one of the things it was founded on was religious freedom. So they didn't want to have the same problem they had before, and so that's why they had secularism to prevent a religious monopoly.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of go a different way. It's similar to what we were talking about with politicians and their like religious beliefs, but should government officials be asked to put aside their religious beliefs when they take public office?
I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I was gonna put like, is that even possible? Because like for a lot of people, I would argue most people, like their religion is almost like part of their identity. You're asking them to put aside part of their identity to be like in office, and I don't think that's like practical, even if it is possible.
And irreligious ideologies, well, irreligious. I mean, they still have opinions in all the same areas that religions do. So someone that is irreligious, perhaps an atheist, agnostic, maybe Buddhist, they'll still have ideas on the existence of God, the foundation of morality, the meaning of life, the purpose of man, and the ultimate destiny of humankind. They'll have opinions on that. Whether that's like at the very least they'll have like yes, that field is meaningful, like purpose of man. They can say, oh well, there's none, but that's still an opinion on the issue. So really, it's again, this is the sort of area where it would be one-sided towards irreligious ideologies, because the atheist, agnostic, Buddhist will not have to. They would not be asked in that case to put aside their beliefs, even though their beliefs are still just as potent and relevant in lawmaking issues as those of religious people.
I think it depends on how, if we could clarify put aside, because like y'all said, as part of their identity, we're not just going to be like, okay, like you're the president now, you can no longer be this and that. But I think this comes back to the question of like separating, like when you're making policies, like do we take into account like your beliefs? For example, like policies on abortion and opinions on abortion could stem heavily from your religious beliefs, and how you feel about certain things could originate from that. But I think an interesting point, and at least in like Western or American government, is that we heavily favor certain religions over others. Like we could definitely see that, and it's very visible. And there are like some conspiracy theories of like Obama being a Muslim, and and that's just like, I think even though it's important to separate the church and state, and like how we make policies shouldn't be affected by your religion, I personally think that there's clearly some type of bias that's ingrained in our society, in American society, to favor certain religions over others.
And so, kind of to follow up, but so do you think, or is secularism even possible to obtain in a government?
So what I understand from the last question of like putting aside religion is I can see that happening um, if you were to say somehow you could get people to elect officials not while disregarding their religion, but those people should not be asked to quote unquote put aside their religion, because as people said, it's part of their identity and they shouldn't be expected to put part of their identity aside when they work in government. But I can't really think of a way that people that we can make people practically vote while disregarding part of their identity. That's kind of difficult.
Yeah, I think Matthew brought up a great point earlier that people are often elected for their particular beliefs. So yeah, that would change the game up significantly.
Yeah, I don't know if we could ever really have like a perfectly irreligious like governmental system. I mean, like the way like kind of like China has things going, or at least in like a PR way, it's like, oh well, everything is like when we think of like the Chinese government, they don't really like say like, you don't really think of them as being influenced by any large religious sect. In fact, you think of them as pretty antagonistic toward any minority religious sect or anything like that. But of course, like that, you can't really ever eliminate it entirely. And I don't think you would even really want to, because I feel like in the pursuit of such thing, I think you could do more harm than good. And so, but I think there's like a reasonable threshold where we can say that like, okay, we probably don't want any particular religion like influencing like everyday life in society. Like when we see like what generally happens in like Iran, we probably think like, okay, that's not a good thing. Like we don't want to have your rights being violated, people being shoved into vans because they're not wearing the headscarf properly. But if we look at places that have pretty significantly like offered like a pretty level playing field, I usually think of like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like kind of traditional, like maybe Catholic leaning, like countries like France or Belgium or the Netherlands. When I think of those countries, I don't really think of like them completely eliminating, religious presence in their society, but I see a more like a healthy democracy with pretty clear religious lines, but still they're able to function, and they're able to even account for or like operate with new like groups coming in, like the recent flux of migrants to France and other countries like that. Yeah. So I think there's a reasonable threshold where we can get to where it's not super harmful, but I think it would be super harmful if we went on a campaign to eradicate all religious elements from our government.
I do think that you can. I do think you can eradicate religious elements from the government. That would be something like communism. Communism is more atheistically founded, and yeah, that's what China's got. They've got no religion in their government. That doesn't mean that they're not acting out of an ideology, though. They're just acting out of a irreligious one. So I do think, and so it is, the problem with that is it's the same problem that we'll we're hitting the same problem that we were trying to avoid with secularism in the first place, is the monopoly of a worldview, one particular worldview legislating for everybody else. Now, I think that how we've got it in the First Amendment, that Congress shall not make a law respecting the establishment of a religion. If we replace the word religion there with maybe particular ideology or worldview, I think that that's the best we can get, because you cannot separate the lawmaker from their religion, but what you're trying to do is prevent monopolies of ideologies. So yeah, you can't make a law respecting the establishment, respecting and creating the monopoly of a religion, basically. I think that's the best we can do.
Okay. So let's talk about when someone like the president is taking office, and you see at their inauguration they're swearing on a Bible. Why is it the Bible? Like, why is that the only book that they're swearing off of, and why can't they swear off something like, why don't they swear on the Constitution? And does any religious book work, or does it only have to be the Bible?
I think Obama did swear on something else. I can't remember what it was, but as far as I know, you can swear on other books, but like the Bible has such a big symbolic meaning. I think that's the main thing, that everyone's been, all the presidents have been using it for a long time. It kind of holds a meaning that is separate from the religion. So it's kind of hard to change that, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very uncomfortable with the idea that it's like done on the Bible. I think it's kind of weird. But it's definitely like, of course it's to be expected, because like the United States has like this funny relationship where it's like, like we recognize that we're like a secular society where people can live out their lives, free of molestation and harassment. If they want to be a Pastafarian, that's completely fine. But I feel like in our highest levels of government, it should probably be, they should probably like cut down on as much like religious symbolism as possible. Just because, not that like, let's say if I was like some sort of Soka Gakkai Buddhist, like if I saw someone swearing on a Bible, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's wild, I feel attacked. It's not so much that, but it's like kind of knowing that you're safe and that this truly is a secular democratic republic. And yeah, we don't get any of those like weird kind of vibes by being like, oh, like only on the Bible. But yeah, Patrick is correct when he said like there are other things that you can do, or like you don't really swear on anything. Like if you see like any like the swearing ceremonies for like people who graduated from any like federal law enforcement academy or police academy, you get most of them swear on the Bible, but some of them don't. Some of them don't swear on anything really. And so I'm glad that we are able to have that freedom.
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is a kind of a similar analogy where if, for example, if someone sneezes, people say God bless you, even though people might not be religious. So it's kind of the same thing, I feel like, with swearing on the Bible. It holds a symbolic meaning that's separate from the religion, because it's been adopted so widely by even non-religious people. So does it really show that, does swearing on the Bible really show that we don't have a secular state? Just as how saying God bless you doesn't make you religious.
And so kind of on the topic of the Bible, so I have some statistics here. So 65% of people in the US identify as Christian, and about a third of them believe that the Bible is true, and those numbers are falling. So would it make sense to change the Bible to something else to address this? And if yes, what would you maybe change it to?
A quick comment on those statistics. If if someone identifies as Christian but they don't believe in the Christian's Guide to Life,
Yeah, I was gonna
it's
say
like
only a third of
that's
those
just so
Christians believe the
crazy, you know?
Bible is true.
Yeah, it's like it's like someone saying, "Oh, I'm a chemist, but I won't touch any chemistry book or something like that. I make my own way." No, you're not a chemist. You're just crazy. But if we were to
To be
change
fair,
it,
I didn't put this statistic on there, so I
Uh,
don't know who found it, but yeah.
I
think-
believe those statistics are correct. Lots of people identify as Christian.
I think a better analogy would be if you're a chemist, but you don't think some of the studies, some of the experiments in chemistry books that you've read you disagree with some of them. I think that's a valid thing to think.
Well, the thing is that the Bible is what defines Christianity. So it's not like I just disagree with other people's opinions on the subject. Like maybe, oh, I'm a Catholic, so I disagree with the Protestants, or vice versa. If it's that you disagree with the foundation of your work, of your religion, that does not make sense at all. And yeah, it's not possible. You can identify as whatever you want. That doesn't. I don't think that wouldn't make you a Christian. If we were to replace the Bible as a swearing on thing, I think Sarah suggested that earlier.
I just want to bring up I'm stage managing for a show, and the director who also wrote the show, he has seen somebody is swearing on something, and he deliberately avoided the Bible. He just told the guy, he just wrote, he's swearing on his heart. I just want to bring that because that's kind of independent of kind of everything. It's just relying on your own kind of morals and your own person, I guess. I don't know what's your opinion on that.
To me, it kind of made sense that originally the Bible held the most significance because by the U.S. did have a Christian majority, I think, and most people would it would have came from the fact that most people would have followed through promises if they swore on the Bible, right? And I think that's changing from the stats I've seen. So if the Bible if people no longer hold the Bible to that high of a regard, does swearing on the Bible? I don't think swearing on the Bible has as much significance as it did before.
I think that's a good point.
So,
I think this current.
go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Josh.
please. No, go
Okay,
ahead.
well, I
What are
was
you
just
talking about?
thinking so why does religion, why do people, because I'm not religious, so I don't really get it. Why do people like to vote for politicians who align with their religious beliefs? Why does it matter if Obama was a Muslim? Why do people make conspiracy theories that he was a Muslim? Is it because we're Islamophobic? Maybe. What do y'all think? I'm not religious, so I can't really speak for anything why do we sway one way?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because we said before that lawmakers can't let their religion bleed through into politics. But in that case, why would it matter what religion they are?
I think I have personal experience with this. It's a matter of in a democratic society. I think you to be able to know that you can trust a person as a representative in Congress or in the Assembly to good on promises as they swore from the Bible. I think is a valuable concept, and I think for people who are religious, their in to a democratic society is not okay, I'm a citizen, it's my citizens' duty to make sure that we live in a healthy republic. It's more of their into democracy is I want to make sure that I can be able to live in the moral landscape that I think is I would want to prescribe for the U.S. Of course everyone thinks their ideas. I hope everyone thinks their ideas are right and they believe in them. And so it's you're in. See, that's kind of how I view it. And if Obama's a Muslim, then it may be feeling alienated. You may not feel like you can trust the government to do the things that you want it to do.
Yeah, I really like Matthew's point actually that people believe that people do because they believe it's correct, and so because out of that, if I believe what I do because I believe it's correct, then someone that is like me they're more correct than someone that is not like me. So it's just that it's religious people aren't the only ones that do this. It's just I will vote for people that are most similar to me because I believe because this way is correct, and so that person is most likely to act correct.
Right. I'll just bring attention to what Vanessa said in chat. I would argue that, say, like Christianity is such a huge religion, and there are so many different sectors and people who have greatly different values, though they're the same religion. For example, the LGBT plus community. I think what Josh said then pretty much captures it. So, see, people would vote for Elizabeth Warren solely because she's a woman, not because of any policies she's released. I think that's a similar situation. Like the relatability of the candidate. If they share that identity, then you feel like you would be more listened to when they're in power.
Voting at its simplest, they'll represent my interests because they're like me, and they're probably
Right.
self-interested.
And while I could still put in, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that living in a free and open like civil society is the best way we can overcome this sort of like community, like in-group, out-group distrust. Because if you distrust Obama because you think he's a Muslim, well, if you have some Muslim neighbors, like I'm using the Gran Torino example, if you have Hmong neighbors, you may say like, hey, these people are normal, they're just like me, we have the same values, we're both Americans today.
Right. I think this is not just a problem with religion. I think this needs to be addressed in like a holistic way. We mistrust people who are not who do not share our identities. I think that's just a bad thing in general, not just specific to religion.
All right, sorry, Josh, but we are going to close in about 17 seconds. So thank you all. We're going to go back to the main room. You're welcome to stay and continue this discussion there. So thank you all.
We just have like we lobby the government to create a spaghetti subsidy, and then we can all be children of the great noodle in the sky.
The great spaghetti in the sky.
Yes.
That would be a law respecting the establishment of the religion.
Amen. Amen. To
Be a law respecting the establishment of religion that is unconstitutional.
As long as we're all.
We cannot have spaghetti subsidies.
Damn.
my right. So
There goes the Italian base. Yeah.
You lost every Italian vote there.
Oh yeah.
let's be the corn.
Yeah, they all worship spaghetti. No, I'm a bit Italian, so I can say.
I want to give credit to religion for lowering suicide rates, which it does. Like in every secular society where people are not really religious, they do lose that sort of community and they start committing suicide. Like that happens, right?
Yeah. It does help when you say suicide's a sin, though.
What?
It does help when you say, hey, you'll go to hell if you commit suicide. It does help.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't
absolutely.
think that's why.
But that's the freedom for security, right? That's the nobody's drunk driving because nobody can get drunk, therefore there's no drunk driver accidents. That's the freedom without security.
I think we're gonna move into the post discussion soon, but
Yeah.
Patrick has a bit to say first.
Yeah.
So
And